What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be answering a pretty interesting question. How good are Amazon carburetors compared to the stock carburetors that come on these old bikes? Today we're going to be working on my Yamaha GT80. It has a top end kit on it, kind of big board out, a little bit of porting polishing, nothing crazy. And we're going to be reviewing the original 16 TK carburetor to the Amazon Special VM18 carburetor. Now, they're not an exact copy of each other. The TK is a weirder, older carb. It actually still works great. The only issue that I had with it is trying to find jets to go with the top end kit that I put on this bike. The jets are super expensive, and I just didn't feel like spending $100 or more on a set of jets that I'm only going to need one. So I decided to go with the tried and true VM series carburetors. To be honest with you guys, I've bought a few of these VM series carburetors from Amazon in the past, put them on other bikes. My DT400, the race bike, currently has one on there. I've done it for a couple other bikes, and I haven't really seen an issue, but I thought might as well use this as an opportunity to show you guys the differences between something that was made in the 70s and something that's made from China today. Alright, you guys, so as you can see here, this one right here, the Amazon carburetor is a lot bigger. Again, like I said, we needed it bigger just because of the top end kit that we had thrown onto that GT80. But besides that, we can start looking at some of the other little tiny differences in just the outside finish of these. Now remember, this is way older, not been cleaned up really. It still works fine. But, I mean, on first inspection, obviously right here the pickup tube is not brass. This one is. This one's got a little bit of a spring to it. There's nothing much difference. So let's start tearing them down. I'll show you guys a couple of the reasons why I always opt for the Amazon carburetor versus the original Mikuni or anything else. Not to say that the original Mikunis aren't actually a way better carburetor than these. It's just, why spend $200 on a Mikuni carburetor when I picked this one up for, I believe, $50? I just don't see a big value difference in there. So let's start tearing these apart, open the float bowls, show you guys a couple of differences in there. So one thing I have noticed on these Amazon carburetors is when you get them, first get them, these float bowls are extremely hard to get off, and it's because of the cheap gaskets they use. Now, they have to make up their money somewhere, and it seems like to me, they like to make them up on the gasket. So I've had these issues before, and really all you can do is start to kind of pry them apart. There we go. So, as you can see here, that gasket, it's already dry and it's never been used once. It's pretty bad, but usable nonetheless. Where things start to get tricky, and what you can say is it worthwhile of the carburetors when we start getting into the floats themselves. So let me pop off this float. And here we can, don't want to lose that. Start seeing some of the quality problems we have. So this float here, brand new, I just opened it up. It's already dented, all dented up. The soldering on it is pretty bad. I mean, it's just goobered on there. But as long as you're patient and you don't have too many high performance stuff that you're really trying to do with the bike, like this bike is really just a bathroom goer, it'll still work. But as we'll pull apart this one here, now this is the Teike. So with this Teike, you can see that the manufacturing quality is a lot better. This carburetor, I have no clue the history on what this carburetor is. I've had the bike for 2 years. I've been reusing the same gaskets. The guy I bought it from, some older fella up in LA, had left it in his backyard since he bought it probably 20 years before that, and he said he got it running once, had one of his buddies had it running once, and that was it. As you can see here, the gasket's still good, still malleable. I mean, I have no clue how old that gasket is. And then here is the float. So these are plastic floats. You gotta remember that part of it. But this is plastic from the 70s. And it was been soaking in gas. When I got it, I mean, this whole thing was just caked in with dried up gas. Bad, fouled up gas. But it all works. And I have not replaced a single jet in this. I haven't replaced a single seal in this. This is all exactly the same way I bought it. And, I mean, I don't know if you guys can see it, but all the brass is perfect. All the little needle jets, all good. Needle valves, all good. Everything's still sitting, and everything's perfect with this carburetor. Really, the only reason why I'm replacing this is because it is extremely hard to find these jets. They're like $4 a pop, and for how much bigger we've gone with this GT80, I really just don't even know where to start with what kind of jets are going to be needed to even start with the bike. So that's why we're just going to put all this back together here. But I wanted to show you guys that, yeah, there are huge differences between buying something from China and trying to restore something like this. Always go with opting to restore it if you have the money to, and the parts availability, like an original Mikuni. There's always going to be parts availability for it. These Teikes, for whatever reason, it's probably because they weren't ran for too long on Yamahas, it's kind of hard to get some parts, especially here. But let's finish tearing apart our main carburetor here, the one we're going to try to keep and put back together. And I'll show you guys some of the other issues when it comes to buying these Amazon carburetors. So as you can see, first issue, you can't just pull out a primary jet. Now this is something that happens a lot with a lot of different carburetors, not just little cheapo Chinese ones, but let's look at the finish on that. It's not bad, but it's definitely not going to last 50 years like the other ones have. Let's get this bad boy off. So, woo! That's one thing you don't want to be doing with the carburetor parts, dropping them around everywhere. Let's slide that bad boy back in there where she belongs. So this is the primary jet that came in this carburetor. And the crazy thing is, I know you guys can't see it, but there is not a single marking on this jet. We have no clue what size jets they even threw in here. But that is why we went with the VM18 series, because we got a lot of VM different main jets. So some of these are actual Mikuni ones, some of these are aftermarket ones. No matter what, though, so you can see here and here, let me pull out two of these for you. They're labeled. They can be labeled in two spots. One being up on the top here. I don't know if I'll be able to get a good picture of that. If not, I'll input one into the video. But that is a 160, and it's very clearly written 160 on the top. And this one right here has it labeled on the side, and it is a 230 main jet. So obviously we're not going to be running this 230. It's a very large main jet for other large applications. But that is one of the big major issues when buying these Amazon carburetors. You have no clue what you're starting off with. The base jetting doesn't mean anything. You're going to have to go in and do it yourself. The cool thing is, though, like I said, they're actual Mikuni jets that can fit right in there. So as long as you are sticking with Mikunis, it should be good. But let's think about what we might need in here. So we're throwing a 160 main in there. It's pretty big. To be honest, I know there's some sort of formula. Figure out exactly kind of what you want based on how much volume is in the cylinder. But I myself is a lazy guy. I'm not going to do it. But as you can see, we just took apart this carburetor. We hadn't adjusted this secondary jet in the slightest, and it is loose enough to twist with my fingers. So that is an issue already coming out of the box. That could come from any carburetor, but it's something definitely to keep in mind when buying these little Amazon guys. Probably not going to be able to just slap her right on in. Now, so we can see here, our secondary jet does not have, or emulsion, whatever you want to call this jet, does not have any markings on it either. So we're just going to run it though and see how she goes, because to be honest, I don't know if I actually have the correct jets to go in here either. Let's tighten her up. It's looking good. Let's go back ahead and put all this back in there. Needle valve there. Whoop. Sorry. So the needle valve goes on this little tab on the float. Throw her on there. If you really wanted to get all hoity-toity with this before even slapping it on the bike, you could go through and start leveling out the float bowl itself, the float. But we're not going to do that. Okay. Let's see why this pin's not going in. There we go. Alright. That's back in there. Seems to be working correct. Let's grab the bottom of the float bowl. Slap her back on. Alright. So, the carb's back together, but we still have the issue of, this is still way smaller than this size here. So we could go back and refix and remanufacture the intake itself. Don't really want to do that at some point if we keep the bike around. We'll get to that just to keep adding, getting more and more horsepower out of this thing. But for now, just because I want to slap this thing on there, I want to be able to ride this stupid little thing, we got to make some shims. And there's only one good material in the garage to make shims for this. So, we cut the beer can down, shoved her on inside this carburetor. This is obviously not the correct way of doing this. There's way better ways to shim something up, but working what we got in the garage, and you know, a beer never doesn't sound too bad. So, decided, why not use it as an excuse? It's 5 o'clock somewhere, I'm assuming. But she seems to be on there without too much play. So we're going to tighten her up, make sure that it's not going to pop off, not we're having any crazy air leaks or anything like that. Again, this isn't going to seal up perfectly, but it's going to seal up good enough for us, you know? We're just a bunch of rednecky little desert rats, so hopefully that'll all work together so we can actually be able to go take it to the pisser and such. Alright, so got the carburetor on there, shimmed up enough, it's gonna work. Hopefully, you know, fingers crossed. But now we just gotta check to see if this original throttle cable is gonna fit onto here. I have a feeling it's not gonna work. So if it does not work, I'll show you guys how we're gonna make that work. And we'll continue trying to get this thing to fire off today. Alright, so we got the carburetor on there. The throttle cable's on there. It seems to be correct. It might be a little short. I can't really see back into the carburetor to see if the slide seating all the way or not. It seems pretty close to it. We might still just replace the throttle cable anyway, because it doesn't... It's a little sticky. So, we might just go along and replace that anyway. But before we do that, you'll want to check out the CDI. It's a little loose. So, I'm going to take it off, clean it up a little bit. It's super rusty anyway. I've never taken it off. Do that. Hopefully it makes a little bit stronger of a spark here. And if we have time, we're going to go get some fresh gas, put the gas tank back on it, and see if she'll fire up. The gas tank, which is the gas tank from the previous video, the cream fuel liner video, I'll link it in the description if you guys want to look into that one. But we're going to put that back on here. That cream fuel tank liner really did a number to the outside paint, so we're going to have to sand that back down, repaint it before we call this bike good to go. But let's just start with taking off that CDI, cleaning it up, and putting it all back together nice and clean. Alright, so I have a feeling there's supposed to be a washer sitting in between there. There wasn't any when I took them off, so I'm not going to put them back on. Not going to run to the hardware store to try to find some, just because I'm a little lazy today. And I feel like it's not a good use of my time. So, we're going to slap this thing back on. Put the spark plug back on in there. And go from there. Alright. We got the CDI back on, spark plug in, everything goes all tight. I mean, that thing was extremely loose when we pulled it off. It's on there, it's good to go, carbs on there. Next thing to do, put the gas tank on, put fuel line on, put some fuel in, try to kick her over. All right, so got the gas tank back on. We got the fuel line on there. You can see it's just a smidge bit too short, but we're gonna make it work for right now. We're gonna pour this questionable gas into this gas tank. Hopefully it kicks over and we can go spinning around the block real quick. She runs, kinda. So we're getting somewhere better. Tune in next time where we redo this tank again, try to put some graphics on it maybe, get a new gas cap, and try to make this thing actually run a little bit better than that. Thanks for watching, you guys.